India
Let's
are in
go. Let's talk
Australia.
cricket.
Yeah, let's talk cricket. India are in Australia, and I've got with me Cyrus Broacha, who has followed Australian cricket for the longest time. Whenever Cyrus and I have met, we've spoken so much about Australian cricket and a certain Sir Viv Richards, who's of course West Indian. But today, we are going to talk a lot about our memories of Australia. At the time of recording, India are in a very strong position, should win from here at Melbourne. Cyrus, I'll bring you in.
Come on, Nishad, don't be a comedian about this, yaar. They can't lose. They can't not win now. 2 or 3 ahead, 4 wickets in hand. This is not going. There's no pink ball involved. They cannot go 36 all out again. That's a 46 years. It's happened twice. Okay, I mean it's not going to happen again. Let's. I come on. I want to just quickly before we go into general conversation. I want to just quickly talk to people like Mark Waugh, who I love so much as a batsman. Everybody went after India and went, fall off, koi chance nahi hai iske baad. Their best chance was Adelaide, this, that, and the other, batting first, blah, blah, blah. But I must say that no one has looked at the Australian batting, which has been so fragile that if you take out Steve Smith, with due respect to Manas, you take out Steve Smith, it's nothing. There's no Warner, no Smith. It's back to zero again. And he's just suddenly, for the first time in his career, and definitely first time after his comeback, lost form completely. He's made 10 runs in 4 innings, one not out. So we only count that. One not out. Even that was scratchy, that one to win. So I think Australia has to really look inwards as well. We did a lot of abusing of India. I'm not going to be jingoistic. I'm very pro-Australia. It's very close. My affinity towards Australia and India is a close matchup. But I think we should look at it properly and see that while they were abusing India with a 36 not out in a couple of bad hours, everybody forgot that for a year or so, Australia just doesn't have any batting. I mean, for Test match batting, I mean, are these the right top six? All the that this is Bradman's country, for God's sake. Arthur Morris and Victor Trumper, Greg Chappell, Ricky Ponting, Alan Border, Bob Simpson. I mean, what the hell are you talking about? Steve Smith, averaging 60, Labuschagne and him 60 before the series, under 60 at the end of the series, it looks like. Okay, that's my rant. I'm done with that. Now we'll talk. We'll
But
talk.
okay.
By the way, please mention that Ashwin has outbowled Nathan Lyon. Before the series, everybody said Nathan Lyon has been fantastic, and no one gave Ashwin a prayer. They said, will he be in the 11? You play Jadeja first as your batting all-rounder. But hello, he's actually outbowled. He has been a real force, except for that 1 hour. His performance in both innings in the first test were really good. I thought he was actually, after Bumrah did the inroads, it was him who was, making the impact. It was the impact bowler. And even now, they lost an early wicket, no doubt, again. But again, it was him who just rattled them. And once he rattled them, I thought Manas's dismissal was on the cards all the time. He kept playing back. They kept saying, in Australia, you're playing back to the spinner at your own peril. There's no other option to him. He doesn't come forward. He wants to play back, 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 back. And finally plays back and goes to first slip. I mean,
Yeah,
even an idiot like me can tell you that was on the cards.
no, Cyrus, one of
So
the
if I was
things.
Australia's coach, I want, before we praise India, I want to just quickly say that Australia has not looked inward. The jingoistic side of the Australian press came out very quickly. Fair enough, 36 is not a joke. It's a horrible situation. You'll always remember it. Where were you when India made 36? It's like where were you when Kennedy died? So yeah, I accept all that, but I was just stunned that they haven't looked inward and figured out that if Steve Smith loses form like he has now, it looks like a battered batting lineup for me. There's no confidence in that team. I mean, and then everything goes against them. While on the other hand, Indian batting was not that fragile. With or without Kohli, it's not that fragile to me. And no matter what you say about Pujara using up balls, I think Bihari's little batting with Ajinkya Rahane set it up. That little phase where they were slow, but they set it up. They just bore down the Aussie bowlers and fielders. And then you had that one partnership which separated the two teams, Jadeja, Rahane. Please bow to Rahane. Everybody bow to Rahane. He's that quiet Indian male who doesn't have any shosha. He's not Virat Kohli or Cyrus Broacha. He's not theatrical or over dramatic. He just does his thing, but he has delivered. I think the country should bow today and show respect to a man who is under duress, under all kinds of jokes and mocking jibes passed against him, come out of Virat's shadow. And let me tell you, I'm a huge Kohli fan. I think he's a fantastic ambassador for the game, whatever people say, and the world's best batsman by a mile. But Ajinkya Rahane, come on, man. This is what cricket is all about. When the chips are down, when you come there, you make that 100. The conditions were still good enough for bowling. Australians, they have only themselves to blame. They put down those catches. Rahane stood tall. I'm changing my son's name to Ajinkya. Just now getting the paperwork done. Fabulous stuff.
Can you just make your phone a little bit straight? Because I think,
Sorry.
yeah,
She
yeah, no
slipped,
problem.
Kipper. She slipped. When the
Yeah,
beamer happened, she
exactly.
slipped.
But it's interesting you mentioned that Virat Kohli, and you're a big Kohli fan. I think you've also seen his farmhouse in Alibag, where even you have a certain
No,
farmhouse.
opposite. we were opposite. If you do the dates, it was about 9-10 months ago, in March. We were opposite, but I didn't bother him. I could have stood outside and shouted Virat. There was nobody for miles. Opposite my property, absolutely. But we let him go. Part of me really wanted to do that. Walking the dogs, I'd pass, look there. Part of me was like, if I was younger, see, the thing about Virat is, as much as I love him, he's younger than me. So I can't go out of my way to scream. But if I was 18, 19 and, Gavaskar, Vishwanath were there, I mean, I would have been shouting Sunny Bhai, Gundapa. I would be doing all that like an idiot. My dad and I did that for Azharuddin at my wedding, because his house was next to my in-laws' house. And he didn't live there anyway. That's the old house.
The one in Juhu.
Banjara Hill. In Banjara, no, in Hyderabad, Banjara Hill.
Oh, okay.
So he had moved elsewhere with, I think, his next wife and all that. But we would go there, and my dad wanted to see the house and all. How people are about the film stars, you go to see Jalsa, or you go to see Shah Rukh Khan's house or whatever. So we do that with cricketers. I'm sorry to say, how disgusting is that?
No,
it's like stalkers.
But having said that, when you met someone a little older to you, Sir Viv Richards, that was a proper fanboy moment, wasn't it?
See, let's not get confused. I'm a huge fan of Virat's. It's just that I'm 49 and he's 32. So it's a little embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? So you don't do that. Your little experience, you want to say, man, I love you and all that. Probably would if I met him face to face. But to go out of your way, you got to be a little younger. Because at that time, they mean so much more to you in terms of like, you literally live and die for your heroes when you're 15, 20. Especially socially awkward males like me who girls would look at. So, all that. To meet Viv Richards, it is still one of the highlights of my life. I got to tell you. And it's on meeting him later was also great. But again, that's a different time in your life. But meeting him as a boy in 1983, after they lost the World Cup to us, and they came there, and seeing them walk out the Bombay Gym, they came out of the bus, and they were like titans. It was like Reservoir Dogs, that opening shot of all these gangsters coming in. And I mean gangsters in a great way because they were cool. They were friendly. They were not hostile in any way, but they looked like alpha males, There's nothing like the West Indies team of the 80s. They walked out one after another. I mean, Andy Roberts, Clive Lloyd, big guys, well built, Michael Holding, and then the king. The king, I mean, V shape with that chisel face of his, and that walk. Even that walk was so cool. He literally was a king. He walked like a monarch. And so, for me, that was one of my highlights, really. That and losing my virginity are top two, I would say. Yeah.
And what about the Australians? Wait first. What about the Australians?
The Aussies, Dean Jones passed away. I saw that whole innings. I was a young kid then, 13, 14, somewhere in the mid-80s, 85, 86 series. I always loved that about the Australians is the grit, the fight. And I'm sorry to say, I feel sometimes now the fight seems to have gone. Like, I expected a better batting performance. I hope I don't eat my words. And then some Cummings is 93 not out, and you call me up and say, Broacha, leave the country. I don't think you can't have two miracles. 36 was a miracle one way or the other if you look at it. And I don't think anything. Okay, they'll wag, let's say, and make 70. We'll chase down 70, 80. Okay, if they go up, I can't see them going up more than that. Even if they go up to 100 with some great batting, I don't think it's going to happen again. Because I think our boys have got the confidence and they know that it's 4, 5, 10 overs, and after that it's all them. And Nathan Lyon, no one's looking at the Nathan Lyon factor. Nathan Lyon's not come to the party. He's not looked that threatening. He's lost the one-on-one battle to Ashwin on home turf.
Yeah.
And I think Ashwin has not got enough respect, Nishad. He's got figures which are unbelievable. Nobody looks at it. His test figures are second to none. His strike rate is second to none. And his foreign performances, which were not so good 2 or 3 years ago, have improved, but he's just not been given enough chances. And you're getting wickets on the first day before lunch in Australia, off spinner. Mark Waugh says off spin doesn't exist. It's a joke. He doesn't look at them as bowlers. Bowling is leg break bowlers or the left arm Chinaman. He doesn't consider these guys anything. And yet Murli is number one, 800 wickets. And Ashwin, I think if he played enough test matches, would have been right there. But anyway, let's not digress. So Aussies, I love the Aussies. I grew up, my dad was the Invincible fan, 1948 team, Bradman. So I know all about all that era. And they've always had these great guys coming in. They've had the mad Doug Walters. They had the Chappell brothers. I mean, Ian Chappell is, something else. Not just as a batsman, which is very underrated. No one talks about how good a batsman he was. Greg Chappell, they say, was, for his generation, Barry Richards, Viv Richards, that's it. Who compares with him? Sonny, of course, from our side. And then all along, Alan Border. Alan Border is that typical Aussie, is he not? That typical Aussie who's in the trenches. What is that line that Rommel says? I don't know if you're familiar with it. Rommel says in World War II, after fighting the Aussies and the New Zealanders, he said, if I had to capture hell, I'll send the Aussies to fight and the New Zealanders to hold it. Because there's no one tougher than them in war conditions. And that's there in the cricket. That's why in Chennai, when he's battling and peeing and crapping and all that, Dean Jones in his 150 plus and wants to go back and retire because he's dehydrated and dying. And I think famously, Border says, "We don't. What's a Victorian doing in a tough condition? We need a Queenslander here." He's in one of those. Yeah, and that's just so Aussie, right? There's no question of empathy. It's like reverse empathy. And what happens? The bugger goes on to make 210 thanks to the goading of his captain. But I feel a little fight has gone from the time they suspended Warner and Smith, and it's hurt their culture. I was so angry about it all. The great thing about cricket is each one had their own way. The Australian way was aggressive. It was sledging. I love all that. I don't know why it went out. It's like the Pakistani way. They don't listen to anybody and they produce these great cricketers. Without a proper system in place. I don't want that to change. They suddenly become like English and they have academies and everybody follows everything. I think Pakistan will just get destroyed. They are an individualistic team. That's how they, fight against the grain sometimes and, just go beyond the pale and do things which you don't expect. So I was very disappointed with the first day. I felt that it was too harsh, the punishment. And then for them to look internally and say, oh, we're abusing too much. Come on, guys. Just don't put the camera mics on, abuse each other. Who gives a damn? Just play the game as hard as you want. And off the field, you can have a drink and be as great brand ambassadors for cricket and country and culture and all that. That's fine. But I that's my personal opinion. I feel they need to get that sting back. But India, on the other hand, they're all saying we are a one-man team. Without the alpha, we can't do anything. Well, we proved we are not a one-man team. And we proved that there are many ways to lead. In many ways, this guy has shown you what we've been missing. A lot of the guys like a Steven Smith or Virat Kohli is so demonstrative, theatrical, if you'd like to put it that way, which is what we've always wanted. What you see is what you get. Transparency. They have that about them because there's no hiding anything. Now we're going back a little bit to a more Vishwanath-like character. Some say Rahul Dravid, but I think of more like Vishwanath. He's a real gentleman, Rahane. He plays it that way, but it's a natural way. It's not like we've told him to become a gentleman. So what I mean is that with the Aussies, you're asking them not to sledge. You're going against their natural way. Yeah, he's a gentleman. He plays cricket nicely. What a lovely gesture. The run out. He goes in, punches him in the heart. I had goosebumps.
Yes.
I said, wow. I got emotional for a second, like a little kid. I hate to say that because people will know what a sissy I really am. But I was, wow. He smacks him in the heart, in a little manly fashion, but it was almost, you could hear the Shana in the background and all. Now, that's leadership. So that Jadeja, keeps his cool and doesn't feel good, bad, or the ugly trying to get his 50th run. He runs out the captain in a sense. I thought that was just good man management. And he's shown that there are many examples of that. He went gut feeling for that catch. Everybody thought that pain, because even we didn't hear the sound. The commentators didn't hear the sound. And Rishabh Pant was not convinced. If the wicketkeeper was not convinced, who will take that punt? He took the punt and he won.
Yeah, he did.
This guy's on fire. He's on fire this week. He should go to the stock market and bet on whatever shares he wants. He buy whatever he wants, bet on the horses. This is the week for Ajinkya. It was just too good. So don't you like that? This is what I love about the sport. You can have all these different types. The quiet, the dark, brooding, soft-spoken hero in the background from our parents' generation sort of hero, coming through. I mean, that's just fantastic. He's that. And whatever you say, this 100 will stay forever. This 100 is a winning 100. This is a real captain's innings. After coming back from 36 not out, 36 all out, what kind of confidence is that? Bro, I'm not letting you talk. I'm so sorry.
What? Have you got that from a certain news anchor?
Yeah, I just realized I'm worse than him. It's only my opinion non-stop. And you're being charitable, old man. Let him talk because technology will go off and I won't hear him again.
No, it's quite fascinating because you mentioned the characters and I wanted to know your perspective because I remember Rahul Dravid saying once that if a Rahul Dravid tries to be a Virat Kohli and is aggressive and expressive, it's not going to work for him. And if a Virat Kohli tries to be a Rahul Dravid, stand quietly at first slip, that's not going to work for him. Because that's what Rahul Dravid says. I tell kids, be the best nature to yourself. Like whatever you are, be yourself. Yeah, that's what it is.
It's that line in Hamlet, to thine own self be true. Some say the greatest line in literature. To thine own self be true. It's anything. Even in the gym, you see people working out, they try to copy the next guy. I'm always talking to people and saying, why are we doing that? Just because I'm shouting and screaming, you don't have to shout and scream. You find a way to, lift the bar, which is literally a metaphor for everything. And when you look at these guys, Ajinkya has not been phased. Virat is such a huge personality that I won't take names, but at least 4 or 5 boys seem to be his absolute parallels and like copies of it. Okay, you and I both know who I'm talking about, and that's not a disrespect to them. When you have a big personality, people tend to follow. If you're Elvis, there are Elvis copies around you. My reference is all dated, so you'll apologize to me.
Yeah, it's okay. We didn't do Instagram Live today. People will realize.
Yeah, really. But coming back, the fact that he can stand his ground in a team which is aggressive, loud, cocky, like the captain, traits which I admire and love. Again, let me tell you, I like the fact that you can have Ajinkya and Virat side by side, and they can be Ajinkya and Virat and have contrasting centuries. One will dominate in 125 balls with lots of cover drives and lots of aggression and hand thumping and all that, and the opposition getting psyched out and irritated with him. And the other will quietly stand his ground like the last soldier in the squad until the tide turns, which is literally what happened. They were on top. They were still on top because we took a 50-run lead. It was nothing. The whole match would have changed. That 130-run lead and 50-run lead is probably the difference. That's the partnership between these two. And he has to be. He's the guy who guided Jadeja. Jadeja actually batted like a test batsman. They said it 3 or 4 times with commentary. So Ajinkya Rahane today, for what I feel about him, I'm really emotional about him. I think it's like being a kid again. I've seen a special moment by a special cricketer under duress. And I
And
think Kohli will be the happiest. He'll be the happiest because he must have thought in his heart of hearts, "मैं नहीं हूं ना तो कुछ नहीं हो पाएगा." Because he's without him, he's the zest, he's the power of that team. But somehow this guy used his personality of comfort, completely different from the real captain, the main captain, whatever the holding captain, and just let the Rahane way come out. So you got the Kohli way, you got the Rahane way. They both work. They both work. It's not like what works. It works because Kohli is Kohli, Rahane is Rahane. And today I'm just a huge fan of Rahane. I love the way he conducts himself. It's just great. What do you think, Nishad?
I think it's
Sorry.
amazing because finally I got a chance, eh?
Yeah, sorry.
No, but I quite agree with you because Rahane comes in with his own personality, comes in with his own way, and people don't realize. Fine, from the like I remember talking to a coach and I asked him about Rahane, and he told me Rahane is someone who's actually very tough. People may not think about him in that way, but mentally coming from the Mumbai school of batting and having gone through the grind, here kids go in those packed local trains, pushing the kit bag and then themselves. So you
No,
naturally
you're
become very
you're
strong.
so spot on. That's what the whole thing is. People think what people mistake is cockiness. Being
Yes.
cocky, being extroverted is not necessarily tough. See, I am that cocky and extroverted, so I can tell you, but nothing to do with toughness. I have a tough bone in my body. This guy, as you said, because of the way he was brought up, the travails of being an old-fashioned Mumbai cricketer, going to the suburbs to wherever, carrying that fat kit bag, figuring out your school studies, because we have middle-class Indians in Mumbai who definitely will finish their academics. Except perhaps the Kamli story which stopped somewhere in college. All the big successful cricketers are graduates. You just look at them.
Yes.
From our side of and again, this is not a class statement against people who are not. But I'm saying in that you expect people to fail at sport and cultural activities because at some point it just gets too hard. He's done everything, and he's just done it his way. You got to respect that. And that's why he's who he is. Now he's just gone through the roof, both as captain and as leader and as a batsman. This is it. You can make 4,000 hundreds. The 100 that you make to win a test match, coming back from a 36 not out after your leader, who is a real leader, has gone. When a leader like Virat goes, he's like Imran Khan going. The team is, you've lost the leader. Forget the batting. Yes, he's the best batsman in the world. But I'm saying without him, the confidence goes down.
Yeah.
You're against mighty Aussies. Everybody's saying 4-0, 4-0. But Brisbane, they don't even mention. Brisbane is like they'll win in 2 days. We don't talk about that. So now, Melbourne, no chance because you're 36 for 9, no chance. And to come back and 191, you bowl them out. The bowling, the way he moved the bowlers around, the way he used Mohammad Siraj, how he got Mohammad Siraj, who himself is coming from tragedy. And, there's a lot of romance in this story. A lot of positive stories from an Indian perspective because they're hard, like you said, hard grain stories from the captain, from a guy like Siraj. Your heart is with that guy. If dad dies, he can't go back. You want him to punch above his weight. You want him to make an impression because there's so much competition for that third seamer spot. And of course, Bumrah. This is arguably in terms of talent, it's tough to say a better stronger Indian cricket team. I think batting lineup, the Tendulkar era, 1 to 6, because I mean, if you're looking at Mazumdar not getting a chance and all, I mean, it's just mind-boggling that generation. However, in sheer talent across the board, spin, pace, all this, it's tough to argue with this team. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, especially the bowling and the all-round options that you have. Look at a Jadeja. People are not talking, don't give him as much credit. But then there were those stats on Sony that they showed since 2016. He's done better than Ben Stokes, Shakib Al Hassan, all of them. He's averaging
Made runs in
nearly
England, made
made
runs
runs.
in Australia.
Yeah,
Alien
exactly.
conditions for us used to be. Very hard to get runs for a batsman who's not celebrated. Or triple centuries in Ranji, they'll always laugh and apna wicket pe ye Pasha, or dusre wicket pe kuch nahi. The usual crap. But that's all changing. But I think this is all about character. All the great cricket stories, Lara's 153 in Barbados, single-handedly to defeat Australia. You think of all the great innings, or they've always got more to it. I remember Gordon Greenwich batting while his daughter's dying, and they put on
Yes.
296 for the opening wicket. Those are the stories that go beyond cricket. And Rahane's story today, for me, the way he batted because of the conditions and situation, and they had the tail up. Cummings is as good a bowler as there is in the world. Of course, if they caught him, this would have had a different result. But that not getting caught is part of the romance, because
Yeah.
as they say, yeah, fortune goes to the bold, and that's what really happened. And like you rightly pointed out, this guy is much tougher than you think. He's just polite. Why can he be
He's
polite
just
and
polite.
tough?
Yeah.
There is such a thing as well brought up, polite and tough. Oh, it's not that all the tough guys are just from the street, Javed Mianda type and all that. There are just polite and tough guys as well, and he's proven it. And I'm so glad he's just been Ajinkya Rahane. And what a lovely batsman! There are a couple of late cuts that he played really late, which went to the third man boundary. I remember someone telling me, that for him to judge the batsman is not how they pick up line and length; it's how late they play the ball. The
Yes.
ability to play the ball late, and by late, of course, it's relative. But Ajinkya, as he got into that inning, he started playing it later and later. That kind of confidence, where you can just, actually you control it like a magician. It's like Bishan Singh Bailey bowling and controlling the ball, as they say. After it's left his hand, he could control it with the remote. So similarly, this is just amazing watching him play those shots, especially on the offside, where he plays late. It's just beautiful. So unheralded batsman, very good to watch once he gets going. And people don't think about that. And yeah, I think, with Mayank Agarwal and Rohit Sharma comes in, Shubham Gill has performed, Virat comes back. I don't know who you're going to drop. It's a bloody good batting order because you're batting in Australia. The 36 has gone out of the window for me. There you go. That's the beauty of cricket, man.
It is.
Literally from disaster to heaven in what? How many? 6 days?
And
Ridiculous.
Mohammad Siraj, you mentioned, and I'm quite glad you mentioned it, because just to think that he couldn't get back to see his father because of these conditions that we are living in. Any other time he would have
Yeah,
come
he
back, and
chose. He
he
chose.
chose to
He
stay back.
chose. Yeah, and this is not a negative chose. This is a huge act of courage. I
Exactly.
salute him. It's
Exactly.
like Virat's story himself when his dad died and he was batting for Delhi and he went back. He went back and batted the next day. I think he made 90 odd, with
He
tears in his
did.
eyes. So,
He did. He
it's
batted.
just,
He batted, scored 90 odd, and then he went for the funeral.
then he went for the funeral.
Yes.
So this is it. The guy is, when he has that kind of mental fortitude, he does this. Then what is the Australian conditions for Siraj? You see, he's crossed that Rubicon. He's crossed that line. He's now become a real man, and he showed it. He bowled beautifully, I thought. Umesh Ji bowled one of the best balls I've ever seen to get a wicket and then limped off, I think. That
Yes, he
was,
did.
but that's part and parcel of the modern game. So whatever it is, I hope there's no twist. I cannot believe there will be. I think honestly, what I think is they will bat a little bit. Maybe 70, 80 will come out in the lead, and we'll win by 7 wickets. That's what I think will be the end of this story. But whatever happens, don't point fingers at me. Till today, what we've seen is a warrior, old-fashioned warrior. I think just without insulting the enemy, taking them down.
True, very true. And just the way, he has marshaled his resources as well as captain, very cool, very calm, and in fact, leading from the front as well. And it's not often that you see him angry as well. I think the only time I've seen Ajinkya Rahane angry on the field was when Steven Smith had looked back at the dressing room and trying to
Yeah,
see if he should go for a
that.
referral, the brain fade, the famous brain fade. That's the only time I saw Rahane pointing fingers to the umpire and saying, like, look
But
what's
today,
happening.
when he took that decision, because I was in the studio, but we watching, and this is the thing I watched like with concentration because I couldn't watch everything. He took that decision on the spot. Okay,
Yes,
and
immediately.
immediately, I'm talking about Tim Payne caught behind. Rishabh and Jadeja, that's bowler, fielder, were not so animated about it. They were not sure. And the wicketkeeper not being sure means I thought that's the end of it. And Tim Payne's body language was, I didn't touch it. He didn't look like he
Yes.
was lying from any angle. And he was really astounded when he did. Now, I don't know about technology and how in the heat touched this and that, and maybe or maybe not. But this guy, he was decisive. He went for it and he got it. He got the result. So you can see that he's far more powerful personality than we think. It's all this wrong thinking about, you've got to be loud and aggressive and I'm not against aggressive. I like the way Virat conducts himself. It's good for India to have a guy like that. But what's wrong with having the old-fashioned way as well?
That's
So
right.
that's where,
And that's what people don't get, because if you see on social media, Rahane has had 2 good days or 3 good days as a captain, and already they're saying, look what Virat was doing, look at this. I know it's fresh energy, but don't lose perspective. And that's the problem with cricket fans on social
This
media.
comparison is very odious for me because Virat
Yes.
does it, he goes to me in the Imran Khan sort of Viv Richards sort of mold where they
Hmm.
like to, because they're the superstars of the team also,
Yes.
they just lead with a lot of, you know, there's no hesitation. They
Hmm.
just believe the other people are under them in a sense without, being negative about it. And that's his way, and it should be. But Rahane's way is a little different. He corrects you. He brings something out of you. He tries it that way. He reminds me of a Clive Lloyd like figure, fatherly figure, of course, age being more there in that case for most of his time. But he would never shout at a Michael Holding or, remonstrate with him or anything. He would try and get the best out of them in another way. So it just shows you there are many ways to use Ashwin's face, many ways to skin a cat. And we have to stop doing comparisons. Comparisons are unimportant. Even the statistics are unimportant. What's important for me is performance under pressure, under duress, when the chips are down. Batting, bowling, fielding. Even if you lose, performing, doing the best you can when things are bad. And I thought coming back with 36 for the next batting, where the onus is on you at number 4, Virat not being there, and he took the bull by the horns. He took the
He
bull by
did.
the horns, and we got to respect that, bro. This is Pat Cummins, Mitchell Stark, Josh Hazelwood bowled one of the best spells we've seen. Okay, that 5 for almost nothing that he did that day. And you know that outside the off stump, when he gets it right, he's almost Glenn McGrath.
True.
McGrath.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a tough bowling contest. And Nathan Lyon, they're saying, is best off spinner for the last 3 years. The best off spinner who was out bowled by Ashwin in all 4 innings for me. All 4. Well, all 3
He
so
did.
far.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you
So they're
see, it
one on
was
one.
and if you see, it was Ashwin who was attacking the stumps as well.
They're scared of Ashwin. They're tentative to Ashwin. Ashwin has got them. If you ask me if there's a real spinning wicket in Sydney or something, I think Ashwin's going to go through them at the moment. Where's Steve Smith? You take Steve Smith out of the lineup, then, what we thought would happen if Virat goes out of the lineup. But for them, it's really happening. No Warner, no Smith, and they're just crumbling. I like Matthew Wade, but he doesn't look like a test batsman to me. He's just chancy. Okay. And Joe Burns, he got that 51 or whatever. But this test match is probably his last test match. They're going to pick him for the third one. That's for sure.
Yeah, and
So
with Warner getting fit, Australia will have that a bit of a
they
confidence
have
as
to
well.
drop Burn. They have to keep Wade because he's got 30 odd in 2 innings. Give him one more chance, I guess. I don't know if he's a test batsman. They've got to sort their life out. I think we have an embarrassment of riches if our boys can just keep their heads in these conditions.
True. And although there was one more thing that possibly troubled the Indians was the way Prithvi Shaw has struggled. And I think it's also about time. Maybe, you should just lay off him and give him his space because ultimately he has to find his own way.
Yeah, also, I feel we've not been just with him. I know he failed in the 2 first-class matches. This is a boy with 100 on debut. Everyone was talking that this is the great next Sachin Tendulkar, Sehwag, since he reminds everyone of Sehwag. But, then he gets injured, he gets disciplinary issues,
Yes.
and suddenly from 18-year-old wonder, he's 21, 22-year-old pain in the ass, they're saying. But you've given him one test. Okay, Joe Burns has had no form, they give him 2. You give him one test. I think that's really unfair. You give him 2 innings, and the second innings, he's only one amongst 11 failures. Mayank Agarwal's 9 was the highlight. So, hello, guys, this is not fair. I think he deserved a second test match because you selected him, you believe in him, you make him, you help that confidence because the guy's got the talent, his feet will move, he'll get to the pitch of the ball. It's all about confidence. I'm surprised. I thought Ravi Shastri is that guy. He likes to push people and give them a chance. But I think the media pressure was just too much, and they decided to knock him off. And Shubham Gill had made those runs in that practice match as well. But I think, don't you think it's a little sad because now if he doesn't get a chance in the next 2 years in the lineup or 3 years, because we've got an embarrassment of riches and they all start batting well, Rohit comes back, for example, Shubham Gill has to be fitted in some way. Virat comes back, so where's the chance of Prithvi? And KL Rahul is right there. You got to put him in somewhere. He's just too good a bat. So I don't know. It's a bit sad.
And I think it's more to do with maybe a mental issue. I think he just needs to sort that out. Possibly, there's a lot going on in his head and may not be so much technical because he came and he scored that 100. He was playing with that technique. Fine, there are chinks in the armor, but if mentally you can sort of deal with it better, it could get better.
Yeah, but when you look at it, they might have looked at it. Management may have looked at it in this way. We gave him 4 innings, 3 innings at least in the warm ups, and we then gave him one test. So he's had 5 innings, 5 complete innings where he's failed. Okay, in Australian conditions where he's not made a 50. So maybe that's the way they looked at it. But I feel that you can't. I feel you have to give a guy 2 test matches, 4 innings of batting or 4 innings of bowling, even in this competitive world, and that's a minimum. In the old days, it would be 3 tests at least.
Yes.
So 4 innings, is that too much to ask for? Give him 4 innings. He fails, drop him for a long time. I feel 2 innings is just too much. Yeah. I mean, what are we? This is like MNC telling you got 1 month to make 50,000 crores. At some point, it just becomes a ridiculous target because it's just 2 innings. It's not fair. That's why I told my wife we should have had 1 year of trial marriage.
And
She
how
told
did
me
she?
that if any woman stays with you for 1 year, you will get the Padma Bhushan. So I said, okay.
You'll get the Padma Bhushan or she'll get the Padma Bhushan.
Sorry, she'll get the Padma Bhushan. See, I can't even get that right.
Well, but you're an early riser, anyways. Thanks to this Australia tour, what's happened is even I'm waking up much earlier. So, what about you? I mean, some memories from the past when you used to possibly wake up earlier just to watch
So when
cricket.
I was not an early riser, I would get up and watch and go back to sleep. Because the breaks would be at 7 and all that, so you could right back to sleep.
Yeah.
The only time I didn't get pumped now, which didn't happen too often, because I remember that Mervyn Hughes series, Tendulkar series, where we lost 4-0. So that was the first memory of watching it really, early morning and all that I can remember properly. And it was a little, because you get disenchanted because you're doing badly. So that's one problem. But now when you're doing well, your blood starts rising, wicket goes and you start
Yeah.
screaming and all that. So suddenly you're awake. It's like coffee. Then you can't go back to sleep.
Yes.
Also, you're waiting. Once your team is on the front foot, you're waiting to get back into the scheme of things. But I like India-Australia matches. There's lots in it for all of us. And I think it's a weaker batting lineup from Australia. And India is all about getting the all-round act together. I don't think there's any real weakness. I think we're outspinning them. We are on par as fast bowlers. Okay, give them a little bit more because of the 36 not out. And our batting is better than theirs at the moment. Yeah.
Perfect.
And their captain keeper, unfortunately, looked good with the bat, but he got this really strange decision today where Sneakometer said out, but nobody heard a sound, and he claimed he didn't touch it. And Rishabh, off the record, told him, "Well, I'm not looking after your baby. I have to tell you honestly that that no one has the ball didn't touch." Well, Rishabh was very clear that it didn't. Rishabh's body language was. I mean, you can't get more body language than that. He crossed his hands and all that. You don't do that. Both hands akimbo, screaming, doing washing powder, Nirma acting. Again, reference from the 80s, 90s for me. That's what they normally do, and he's quite animated when he wants to. So you can see the difference. For Indian wicketkeepers, generally, except Saha, you normally scream for everything, right? If the ball pitches way outside leg, you're still screaming and all. So from that sense, this was one of the lowest appeals. But this is cricket.
It
Win
is
some,
cricket.
lose some.
It is cricket. So, Cyrus, great chatting with you on India Australia. And when it comes to cricket and India Australia cricket, obviously, it's always great to chat with you. We, in fact, could have had the Australia Legends play earlier this year, but thanks to COVID, we couldn't finish that series. We could have seen an India Australia Legends game as well.
Yeah, and I think we crossed that line from jingoism and just being about your country. I was just watching Faf make 150 here on TV while we were talking in Centurion, and I'm thinking that now, if you do that, you start enjoying the game for so many other things.
True.
Even from the Australian perspective, you see what's working, what's not working, that kind of thing. I thought Smith, when on song, is just somebody else. I've never seen him drop catches like this. His whole body language has changed in terms of his madness is actually less, which seems to be the correlation with his success. So the mad antics are down a little bit. If you notice, the body language is down. How confidence is everything, whether you're Bradman or whether you're a guy who played one test match for Bangladesh back in the day. It's just that. So that's our lesson. I know you want to pull out of this interview and you've had enough, but
no, that's because my Zoom time limit is getting done. It's less than a minute.
Sorry.
No problem. But I hope.
So as usual with all Zoom talks, we never got to the point. Yeah.
No, it's quite wide ranging, anyways. I mean, when have we ever got to the point?
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.